What happens when a rebel in cargo shorts turns his HOA nightmare into a carnival of chaos? Sometimes, all it takes to ignite a revolution is a driveway and a dream. As my blood boiled over my morning coffee, watching that fluorescent orange paint dry on my property, I realized that my long-held belief that nothing could irritate me more than a single misplaced sock had just been thoroughly debunked. I mean, who did these HOA clowns think they were? It's as if they saw me sipping coffee with my hair in a messy top knot and thought, well, put a sign here. His driveway screams, temporary parking. They had officially crossed the line from just being annoyingly boring to outright absurd. I decided then and there that I would become the modern-day Robin Hood of suburban dissidents, taking back what was mine, or maybe it was more like Captain Chaos going up against the uptight soldiers of the HOA. Whatever the title, I had a mission to turn this ridiculous situation into my own comedy show. After an embarrassing amount of contemplation, and after getting way too invested in the Pinterest boards for faux car dealership signage, I decided I would transform my driveway into Max's Marvelous Motors, home of the free parking. Picture it, inflatable palm trees lining the walkway, a massive cardboard cutout of a smiling car salesman, who I named Frank for maximum optimism, and an assortment of used sports equipment that I could pretend were stunning imports. Lola, my spirited artistic neighbor, was on board, harnessing her unyielding creativity to make the impossible happen. We laughed eagerly as she wielded a paintbrush like an artist possessed, turning our visions into chaotic reality. When the day of the grand opening finally arrived, I felt like a Broadway star on opening night. I donned a white suit jacket I'd bought 5 years ago and had never worn, an oversized tie that could double as a parachute, and a pair of sunglasses about 4 sizes too large. Definitely a look only someone with supreme confidence could pull off. I stationed myself at the end of the driveway and awaited the onslaught of confused neighbors. I could hardly contain myself when Mr. Worthington, with his hawkish eyes, rolled past on his daily property patrol. The look of utter disbelief on his face was worth every ounce of effort I had poured into this prank. "What in the world is going on here, Thompson?" he yelled, his voice a mix of bewilderment and fury. "Just bringing a taste of the real world to our sophisticated haven, Mr. Worthington." I shot back, throwing my arms up for dramatic effect. People need more options than just staring at white lines and grass, don't you think? Consider it a community service. I could practically hear the gears grinding in his mind, his stern expression trying not to acknowledge the craziness enveloping his perfectly curated neighborhood. In the midst of my exposition, Lola jogged past in a banana costume she had pulled from her art supplies, proclaiming, "We've got a deal today. Buy one inflatable palm tree, get a used basketball free." This might have been slightly over the top, but the absurdity of it all was intoxicating. At that moment, the neighborhood began to gather, overwhelmed by curiosity, or perhaps just sheer disbelief. My neighbors started to show up, smartphones in tow, capturing the scene akin to catching a rare Pokemon. I fed off their energy like the true entertainer I was convinced I had become. "Step right up! Half of the price! All of the parking!" I shouted, waving my fake flyer. Before long, people were laughing, and the laughter turned into chatter. I half expected a local news crew to waltz in, and honestly, it wasn't that far off from where we were headed. Was I mocking my HOA, or had I genuinely created a peculiar form of suburban folklore gone wild? But just as Mr. Worthington's wheel-spinning expression was beginning to relax, even his pursed lips softened for a fraction of a second before he registered the sheer ridiculousness surrounding him. A profound change washed over the crowd. They were loving it. The humor of the situation wrapped around all of us like a warm blanket, where once there had been only frustration and a sense of being buttonholed by rigid regulations. With Mr. Worthington standing there, conflicted, I couldn't help but feel a smug sense of victory. Wasn't this the perfect display of everything I was trying to fight against? The crescendo of chaos peaked when I announced my first official sale of a used tennis racket adorned with colorful streamers. To my shock, Mrs. Henderson, who forever had her nose in everyone's business, launched herself into a bidding war against Mr. Lucas, who thought he was the king of yard sales. Laughter erupted, and Mr. Worthington's eyes widened in disbelief, slowly morphing from irritation to resignation. It was a symphony of absurdity and defiance, a moment so rich that I sensed the tide was turning, not just for me, but for the very fabric of our HOA-ruled lives. Just then, an idea struck me as I sipped my lukewarm coffee. What if I made this dealership a permanent fixture? Surely making an official proposal, detailing community engagement, perhaps even a weekly garage sale vision, would turn this prank into a legitimate movement. Yes, I could see the whimsical dreamscape forming now, complete with even more ridiculous decorations. Mr. Worthington might just sink back into his definition of normalcy. But today, my driveway was the front line of a revolution against the monotony of suburbia. Who knew that a painted line might spark such a movement? Maybe, just maybe, a little chaos was all we ever really needed to shake things up. As the excited chatter echoed louder, and the air filled with the tantalizing scent of rebellion, mixed with banana costume sweat, I couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie wash over everyone. Each person, from the notorious gossiping Mrs. Henderson to the retired Mr. Winkleman, all burst forth from their buffered cocoons, drawn to witness the spectacle that was Max's marvelous motors. With every laugh exchanged and every snicker shared, it became evident that my little prank had etched itself into the communal narrative of the neighborhood. I never thought I could inadvertently spark a revolution with a DIY sign, a few inflatable palm trees, and a borrowed banana outfit. But there we were, united in absurdity and amusement. My deep dive into the car dealership concept had taken an unexpectedly commercial flair, spawning improvised contests and friendly negotiation strategies fit for flea markets rather than luxury lots. Children pranced around the driveway, bouncing balls and laughing, while Lola had enthusiastically declared a trading post on the sidelines, gathering items to barter like the master negotiator she was. "Who wants to trade a dusty old lamp for a used frisbee?" she shouted, hands flailing like a talk show host trying to draw in a crowd. It was surreal. I watched as the very suburban stoicism Miss Worthington represented started to dissolve before my eyes, his hawkish demeanor clashing against the lively chaos unfolding on my once boring expanse of asphalt. But alas, Mr. Worthington was not quite ready to surrender his years of adherence to the stringent HOA regulations that had, until this moment, served as the lifeblood of his existence. He stood at the periphery, arms crossed tightly over his chest, the embodiment of escalating irritation. Each chuckle from the gathering throng drove him deeper into his indignation. "This is an absolute violation of HOA bylaws," he finally spluttered, the words erupting like overboiled spaghetti from his tightly wound insides. I feigned shock, adjusting my oversized sunglasses with the grace of a prancing peacock, and smirked. "Oh, Mr. Worthington, don't be such a spoilsport. This isn't just an event, it's a community bonding experience. Think of it as neighborhood therapy." In an ironic twist, it was as if the absurdity of his consternation fueled the hilarity of the situation. The crowd, now a ragtag bunch of misfit allies and giggling conspirators, began to rally around my defiance. "Yeah, Mr. W." Mrs. Henderson chimed in, clearly having switched sides, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I think this is exactly what we needed. Shall we add a bounce house next?" The laughter swelled, and I relished knowing that the tides had turned completely, leaving Mr. Worthington standing alone in the storm of jovial resistance that I had unintentionally created. Maybe deep down, he secretly longed to join in. Perhaps he was just one inflatable palm tree, away from liberation himself. And then, it happened. Just as I thought we had all but driven Mr. Worthington into complete surrender, that daunting line between absurdity and horror blurred even further when Bob, our unofficial neighborhood prankster, mounted his rusty lawn chair onto a skateboard and proclaimed himself the official dealership test driver. The sight was so ludicrous that it sent pangs of laughter rippling through the audience. Mr. Worthington clutched his clipboard tighter, balancing the embodiment of community rules against the sheer lunacy that had gone out of control. Then, a gleam sparked in his eyes, as though he were digesting the gravity of the situation for the first time. Would he embrace the absurdity right in front of him? Or would he grip his control even tighter as this carnival of chaos escalated? Just when it seemed our makeshift dealership would either be immortalized in suburban legend or cut short at the hands of the hawkish enforcer, Lola seized the moment. She rallied the crowd, declaring, "Time-limited trade options now in session," followed by the creation of Max's gift cards that could be bartered against any of my makeshift inventory. There it was, a brilliant ploy that illuminated just how hungry this community was for something outside the mundane regiment of HOA decree. I stood there, humbled and giggling at the sheer genius I was involuntarily part of creating, marveling at how defiance had morphed into jubilant freedom. In that moment, Mr. Worthington, unraveling like the very sticks of his stringent demeanor, took a moment to survey the scene. He gazed at the laughter, the spontaneous sense of community all brought together in a simple rebellion against dullness. What did it mean for a man who'd spent his life safeguarding monotony? It was clear. He was torn between upholding the very rules he dedicated himself to enforcing and basking in the joy vibrant and infectious in the air. "Fine," he roared, finally relinquishing control and tearing a strip of paper from his clipboard. "If you all want chaos that badly, let's make it a community event official." Everyone erupted in cheers, and euphoric disbelief washed over me like the lush scent of victory. What can I say? Sometimes it takes a little chaos to flipping the script on suburban life, turning a mundane HOA battle into an unforgettable neighborhood revolt. What will we want to conquer next? The moment Mr. Worthington declared my makeshift dealership an official community event, the neighborhood erupted in a symphony of applause and laughter, drowning out his previous disapprovals like an angry teacher being serenaded by a chorus of school children. I felt like a victorious general returning home to a parade, and my mind raced with mischievous possibilities. What started as a little rebellion had morphed into a full-blown neighborhood festival, the likes of which the tranquil streets of Maplewood Haven had never seen. With more inflatable palm trees on the way and food trucks implying a culinary revolution, the mission to break free of HOA drudgery was at full throttle. Lola sprang into action, orchestrating the next phase of our lavishly ridiculous exposition with all the gusto of a Broadway director. "Everyone, we're going to need a car wash. This is a deluxe dealership after all," she shouted, her spirited eyes twinkling with enthusiasm. Within moments, she rallied volunteers and gathered supplies, turning our parking lot into a miniature car wash wonderland. Meanwhile, I was assigned the heavy lifting of securing more inventory for the dealership. Armed with my phone, I called in every favor imaginable, making questionable deals with friends and downright absurd trade exchanges, slide tackling into the existence of clunky sedans, ancient pickup trucks, and even a green scooter that looked like it had survived the apocalypse. By the time the sun set over Maplewood Haven, my driveway was teeming with treasures that would make any used car lot feel envy. Yet and still, lurking amidst the carnival of jubilance was Mr. Worthington, now begrudgingly involved, yet still combing through everything with the authority of a hawk surveying its territory. Absurdly, he morphing into an unwilling ringmaster, attempting to set some semblance of order amidst this delightful chaos. "You do realize this is still against HOA regulations, right?" he blurted out, finger waving like a days-old fly landing on leftover donuts. But now, he wasn't the only one under scrutiny. A small group of neighbors began to jeer back, emboldened by our shared uprising. "Rules? Those are simply suggestions on a sunny day," someone shouted back, and my heart soared knowing the wings of rebellion had spread far beyond my original scope. Seeing Miss Worthington falter and visibly strain to uphold his grip in the face of a united neighborhood was like watching a balloon deflate in slow motion. His once stern visage softened, almost comically, as clips of laughter and playful banter enveloped him, creating an inescapable wave of camaraderie. Even Bob, test driving his rusty lawn chair on wheels, jumped in and out of showroom cars like a pro stunt driver, which left everyone in tears of laughter. It was becoming undeniably clear that Mr. Worthington, amidst his rigid intentions, had stepped onto a stage overflowing with joy, whimsy, and just the right touch of mischief. I caught a glimpse of his tight lips curling slightly upwards, and I had to wonder, was he secretly enjoying this? As the hours passed and the sun dipped lower, I concocted a master plan infused with the concept of karma. Mr. W., how about we host a best car dealership theme contest with a top prize of a personalized parking spot roam map? I suggested, raising an indignant eyebrow in his general direction. It was a playful jab, tempting Mr. Worthington to embrace his own competitive edge while simultaneously taunting the sobriety of his ethos. His hawkish gaze glinted as he considered it, and I couldn't help but smile at the predicament he found himself in. Were these idiosyncratic antics forcing a crack in the armor he wore like a second skin? In this whirlwind of rebellion, had I just suggested an opportunity that could further rally neighborhood sentiment and, dare I say it, turn Mr. Worthington into a reluctant participant in our grand uprising? The contest commenced in pure pandemonium, propelling us deeper into the absurdity of this spontaneous gathering. Themes ranged from superhero vehicles, which had one neighbor fashioning his minivan with old pool noodles and glittered superheroes, to prehistoric rides, where another resident rolled in with a cardboard dino car that looked like it had escaped a third-grade art class. Mr. Worthington remained a reluctant judge, standing a few paces away with his arms crossed but watching closely, subtly critiquing, sprinkling in suggestions just so he could maintain some semblance of authority. Meanwhile, I made my parting moves, gauging the crowd's reactions, orchestrating the silliness with a grace worthy of a director on set, my heart dancing to a giddy rhythm of triumph. So as the contest wrapped up, laughter grew louder, and I basked in a glorious haze of accomplishment and joy. I felt that sweet, heady rush of community pride surge through us all. Tonight, Maplewood Haven shuns the mundane, I hollered, raising my arms as the neighbors cheered, drowning out even Worthington's inevitable objections. In that humming, electric moment, it was clear we had rewritten a page of suburban existence together. A heart-warmingly absurd chapter sewn together by laughter and camaraderie. Would this spur future rebellions, or perhaps inspire more creativity to flourish in our regimented abode? What fantastical chaos might we conjure next? The raucous energy of the contest had morphed my once peaceful driveway into a veritable circus, complete with ingenious cars adorned with accessories crafted from the depths of suburban garages. Laughter echoed through the streets as neighbors paraded their creations, each vehicle more peculiar than the last. I spotted Mrs. Robinson, our corner's cat lady, who had plastered her ancient Buick with fuzzy cat ears that flopped around comically as she drove in slow circles, yowling like a feral feline. In that moment, I knew my absurd venture was taking a life of its own. The HOA's iron grip practically evaporated, dissolving like sugar in hot coffee, replaced by the sweet taste of shared rebellion and enjoyment. Each chuckle and cheer from my neighbors fueled me with an invincible sense of purpose. It felt glorious to be the unintentional ringleader of this underdog uprising against Mr. Worthington's stern regulations. As dusk settled in, a cadre of twinkling fairy lights threaded through our makeshift dealership, casting a warm, inviting glow over the revelry. It was nothing short of genius. The stark white of my driveway transformed into a whimsical carnival. One neighbor had even rigged a karaoke machine, blasting a medley of songs that made the entire street feel like we were living in a musical. "I'm off to buy a Chrysler from my Jolly Green Giant," a neighbor belted out, sporting a head of lettuce for a hat while shimmying between the lots. I marveled at how transformed our neighborhood had become, not just a collection of houses, but a vibrant, silly community, united against the mundane constraints of HOA life. Mr. Worthington stood, arms crossed, but this time his scowl was softened by the flickering lights and boisterous joy around him. Where is the order in this disarray? I imagined him lamenting internally, yet somehow, absurdly, He seemed to possess the slightest glimmer of amusement behind those hawkish eyes. With a buoyant sense of rebellion enveloping the streets, I thought the culmination of our efforts deserved recognition beyond cardboard trophies or neighborhood potlucks. Recognizing that Mr. Worthington's authority, as rigid as it was, teetered on the edge of comic absurdity, I devised a wicked little plot to celebrate our success, and possibly poke fun at Mr. Worthington while I was at it. What if we crown an HOA's most unpredictable meme? I proposed amidst the clamor, knowing full well that it would unearth the raw absurdity of our neighborhood war. The winner gets to choose the next communal event. Within reason, laughter erupted, and I could see Mr. Worthington's stern facade crack under the pressure of shared joy. Wouldn't it be fantastic to watch him see the hilarity in our rebellion? Perhaps even join in? As we set the plans for the HOA Most Unpredictable Meme Contest into motion, my heart raced with anticipation. Neighbors flooded the driveway with suggestions, flailing limbs like windmills as they salivated over crafting their most aggressive, silly submissions. I reveled in the camaraderie brewing around me, fueled by a delightful concoction of mischief and merriment. But just as I was basking in our collective creativity, there was a sudden and dramatic moment of hush. Every head turned as Karen, the de facto HOA whistleblower, emerged like an angry storm cloud, arms crossed, flanked by an entourage of brandishing clipboards bearing her meticulously typed complaints. My previous amusement shifted to suspense. Karen was not one to back down from a challenge, and if she was here, chaos was sure to follow. "Max Thompson," she declared, her voice cutting through the jovial atmosphere like a knife through whipped cream. "This madness cannot stand. What is this ridiculous charade?" She gestured around, highlighting the spectacle I had orchestrated. Fueled by her own righteous indignation, she'd made it her business to put the kibosh on this lighthearted mayhem. The neighbors, however, appeared like a wall of shields behind me, ready to pounce in defense of the absurdity we had birthed. "It's a celebration, Karen. We're dismantling the suffocating rules of the HOA one laugh at a time," shouted Lola, her colorful leggings dancing as she stepped confidently into the fray. "Join us. You might even crack a smile." At that moment, something unexpected happened. As disgruntled as she was, Karen's tightly wound demeanor showed signs of confusion, a crack of concern disrupting her ironclad facade. "But," she stammered, glancing at Mr. Worthington, who was now trying to suppress a grin behind his hand. My heart took flight watching this moment unfold. Could Karen be swayed by good old-fashioned fun? Was our joy-infused rebellion cracking her authoritarian shell? "We could always offer you a special contest entry, an arts and crafts vehicle decorated by the infamous Karen," I teased, the playful grin plastered across my face as I leaned into her incredulity. The streets erupted into laughter again at the thought, and I could hardly contain my own amusement. Would this be enough to lure Karen into our ranks? The culmination of absurdity swept through our suburban battlefield like a wildfire, uniting us, disarming tense spirits, and planting tiny seeds of camaraderie even in the most unlikely of places. I glanced at Mr. Worthington, who, despite his best efforts to maintain control, looked utterly enchanted by the laughter wafting through the air. Our defiance had morphed into something far more profound than a simple contest or a rebellion against HOA rules. It was a blossoming community, molded by creativity and giggles. My mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. Could we sustain this rebellious spirit, or was it destined to be just a fleeting moment in time? What other imaginative schemes could we hatch together in the face of regulations? With laughter still echoing and camaraderie growing, I realized we were not just bending rules. We might be on the brink of transforming the often predictable nature of Maplewood Haven into a vibrant canvas of artistry and joy. As I stood there, feigning confidence, while internally juggling the flaming torches of anxiety and curiosity, I realized Karen had, quite possibly, entered a realm of delightful absurdity. The confused expressions written all over her face made it increasingly clear that our shenanigans had shaken her to her very core. Maybe I should have felt bad for the woman so wholly devoted to maintaining the dull monotony of HOA regulations. but I could hardly contain the bubbling laughter within me. As the chorus of giggles faded, a thought emerged. What if we turned this bizarre confrontation into a hilarious challenge? It could be the perfect trifecta of chaos, creativity, and epic entertainment. All right, Karen, you're officially our guest judge for the HOA Most Unpredictable Meme Contest, I proclaimed, throwing my hands up as though rallying troops for a victorious charge into battle. The crowd behind me erupted into cheers, employing varying levels of enthusiasm, from fevered shouts to raucous applause. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em, I chuckled to Lola, whose vibrant blue glasses sparkled with mischief. A contagious grin spread across her face, and I could see her gears turning with ideas that could escalate this farce to epic heights. Meanwhile, Karen looked less like the formidable enforcer of boring standards, and more like a deer caught in headlights, with that clipboard clutched tightly to her side. Given the breathtaking shift from nervous bureaucrat to a bewildered participant, I couldn't help but wonder whether we might, through sheer happenstance, coax her into enjoying herself. As far as I could tell, chaos had become our calling card, and who better to witness and perhaps even celebrate it than our dear HOA querent? Just think, Karen, you could finally release your inner artist, I added with a smirk, biting back the laughter that bubbled beneath the surface. And then, just as Karen was about to respond, who would have thought we'd ever get to the point where responding was her mode of operation? Our neighbors made their move. One by one, they started peddling ideas, bubbling with creativity as pitches flew around like hyperactive fireflies on summer night. How about a sock puppet car? Shouted Mr. Puppet Car. Hargrove, who had been previously miserable under the shackles of HOA regulations, now embracing the absurdity with open arms. Laughter erupted, and in a feverish wave, ideas about cars made from hot dogs, giant inflatable plastic flamingos, and even a submission featuring a shoddily constructed cardboard spaceship bolted into the mix. I watched as idea after idea became a frenzied dance of design, and amidst the laughter, I noticed something strange happening to Karen. Her brow furrowed in confusion, morphed slowly but deliberately, until the tiniest hint of a smile began to curl at the corners of her mouth. Encouraged by our collective zeal, I hopped up on our makeshift podium, a repurposed milk crate I'd tactically slapped with Max's Auto Emporium in bright neon colors. All right, everyone, let's make this weird. Each of you gets 5 minutes to pitch your vehicle design to Karen. Bonus points for creativity, ridiculousness, and how many times you can make everyone in the audience laugh. The cheers that spiraled from my neighbors lifted me higher than the bubbles I had once blown as a child. I was a motley MC of chaos, master of ceremonies to a carnival of outright silliness. Meanwhile, Karen's expression danced between disbelief and reluctant amusement, where she held her clipboard dramatically like a sword ready to vanquish the very absurdity she encountered. As the pitches unfolded, I couldn't help but revel in the sheer hilarity. The neighbor known as the Wacky Weeds Lady presented her 10-foot-tall weed wagon, outfitted with inflatable garden gnomes, one of which promptly deflated mid-description, causing even the slightest smirk from Karen. It began to dawn on me that laughter was perhaps the greatest democratic force in Maplewood Haven. By the time we reached the end of the queue, something truly magical transpired. As Karen took notes, she cowardly avoided eye contact to maintain a semblance of authority, but her mouth twitched in what I could only decide was a laugh. The neighbors cheered louder as our shirts grew more disheveled from hooting and hollering, turning what once was a rigid struggle against authority into wars waged with giggles and glee. Finally, when the reviews reached their ultimate crescendo, Karen held up her clipboard like the ultimate trophy, ready to declare the winner of Most Unpredictable Meme. Well, as much as it pains me to admit, she began, her voice now a strange blend of authority and mirth, the weed wagon is a prime example of completely useless creativity. I couldn't help it, I howled, envisioning not just the physical appearance of the vehicle, but the sheer audacity behind it. Yes, we did it. I turned to the crowd, our handiwork spiraling into a collective sense of satisfaction. Together, we've shown that laughing at the ridiculousness of HOA rules is not only a fun pastime, but one worth celebrating. The echoes of our jubilant celebration rippled through the neighborhood, even as the dusk slipped quietly into the folds of the night, the laughter bonding us closer than ever. It felt like a glorious turning point for the lives we all led under the heavy authority of sterile regulations. Who knew we could acquire something so suddenly chaotic and still maintain our essence as a community? As Mr. Worthington split his notorious scowl for the briefest moment, his eyes flickering with amusement between us, I secretly crossed my fingers that this newfound laughter would inspire a glimpse of leniency down the line. Was it too much to hope that we could fuel a creative renaissance in Maplewood Haven? I chewed my lip, thinking about the absurdity of authority bending to joy. What if we challenge the conventions even further, perhaps pitting our goofy energies against those very regulations that once confined us? There was surely more mischief that could be brewed in our rebellious cauldron of community spirit. As the laughter of my neighbors echoed around the driveway turned parking lot fantasy, I took a moment to survey the scene before me. Mr. Worthington's once frozen face had softened into an expression surprisingly akin to bemusement. I felt like a circus ringmaster holding the world's most absurd carnival in my front yard. Just when you think your HOA has relegated you to the realm of beige and boring, something as simple as a painted parking spot can ignite a spark of rebellion wrapped in absurdity. I couldn't help but wonder if Mr. Worthington was reconsidering his entire career at that very moment, his soul yearning to break free of the monochrome chains that bound him to the world of stringent regulations. Perhaps he too felt the whisper of creative wind rustling through his neatly combed hair, urging him to break the 27 rule codes about acceptable lawn flamingos for once. To capitalize on the spirits lifted by laughter, I decided it was time to cement the wild success of our eccentric challenge into something more semi-permanent. With Lola's buoyant presence at my side, we brainstormed ways to raise the stakes even higher. "We should put up a sign, Max, an actual sign," she proclaimed, her blue glasses catching the fading sunlight and reflecting sparkles of inspiration like a beacon. So, with enthusiastic agreement, we rushed towards our combined arsenal of spare wood, paints, and potentially dangerous crafting tools. The ultimate goal? To create an auto dealership sign that outshone every inflatable flamingo in existence. "Welcome to Driveway Autos, home of the genuine faux cars," the sign would proclaim in dazzling colors. Forget classic grand openings. This was an explosion of suburbia that would reach beyond the sterile walls of conformity and splatter joy across our quaint Maplewood Haven. Once our masterpiece was flicked into existence, we gleefully gathered materials for the showroom. Inflatable beach balls were arranged haphazardly around the dealership, each sporting exaggerated prices like Funky Fiesta, only $500. Bonus, a free pair of neon sunglasses. Whimsical banners made from leftover scraps of fabric cascaded from my porch, announcing an absurd 2-day sale promising no credit, no problem. As more neighbors joined in, they brought their own creations, adding car-shaped cupcakes and artisanal lemonade, which quickly turned the event into a community fete, celebrating the absurdities of our lives. The chaos grinned back at convention, daring it to enter our realm while polishing our communal understanding that humor could truly slice through the mundane. Of course, as any fantastical plot involving an HOA would unfold, the shenanigans attracted unwanted attention. Enter Karen with a prim stance, her clipboard clutched so tightly it appeared to have fused with her hands, and the brow-beaten visage of Mr. Worthington following closely behind. "What do you think you're doing?" Karen barked, but I couldn't help but internally cackle at her contradiction. She stood there sternly, yet behind her, a sparkle flickered in Mr. Worthington's eye. Maybe the delightful spirit of whimsy was infecting our HOA dragon, turning him into an unlikely ally. "Welcome to Driveway Autos," I exclaimed, throwing out my arms in a mocking serenade. "Real cars are so yesterday. We deal in laughs and good times. Care to test drive a cardboard chariot?" My neighbors cheered and pointed, illustrating that the tide had indeed turned in our favor irrevocably. Caught in a whirlwind of hilarity, Karen's question seemed to hang in the air like that odd taco-flavored slushie at the summer carnival. The suspense was palpable, I could almost hear the gears in her mind straining against her resolute villainy. Yet, contrary to my expectations, she seemed more flustered than furious, a crack in her iron facade forming. As Mr. Worthington leaned closer, curiosity inching onto his face, it became apparent that we, the noble jester brigade of Maplewood Haven, had ignited something beautifully chaotic in them too. You know, he spoke finally, his voice tinged with something I could only describe as hesitant amusement. Perhaps a little creativity wouldn't hurt. His words lingered in the air like a poised threat, a surprising concession to our unconventional rebellion. What began as a battle against absurdity soon charted its course into an unexpected tide that washed over the neighborhood. The Driveway Autos event unexpectedly morphed into the most glorious hiatus from the ho-hum existence under an HOA's thumb. I received a heartfelt email from a fellow homeowner, thanking me for rallying delight amidst the monotony that had gripped us for so long. Laughter, it seemed, was our shared reprieve, and I savored the taste of victory, sweeter than my morning coffee. Sitting back with that piping hot brew, surrounded by fellow suburban warriors stirring creativity in the hearts of even the most hardened HOA enforcers, I absorbed the triumph we'd shaped together. "Lola," I exclaimed, caught in a moment of unexpected satisfaction, "have you ever faced an entitled neighbor?" Her eyes lit up with mischief as she contemplated joining in that shared absurdity. It dawned on me then that we'd not simply challenged the HOA's ridiculous mandates. We'd also woven a tapestry of camaraderie through shared laughter, an elixir potent enough to overcome any bureaucrat's stingy demands. So, as I lifted my coffee cup in salute to our little band of misfits, I could only hope it wasn't just a fleeting victory. Perhaps Maplewood Haven had finally embraced the belief that absurdity and joy could reside alongside rules and regulations. What lay on the horizon for us? Only another delightful interchange of creativity and laughter awaited. Who knew what might come next?